This video is going to discuss the failed 1975 prophecy of Jehovah's Witnesses. It's very common for Jehovah's Witnesses today to state, and they state this to me occasionally when I'm out there witnessing to them on the streets, they'll say something along the lines of this. The Society has never published any literature stating that 1975 was going to be the end of the world. It was the brothers, and they mean by the brothers, they mean their fellow believers. It was the brothers who just got excited and this sort of group hallucination took effect. Well, it's absolutely absurd. First of all, to believe that a group at that time existing of millions of people are going to have the same thought without it coming from the society is absolutely absurd. So what I'm going to show you here is proof from their own literature. And again, everything I show you here is actual Watchtower Society literature. Nothing here has been reprinted. No quote here is taken from another author quoting in another book. I'm going to show you the actual books which came off the press of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. So with that, we're going to start with this bound volume here from 1966. So what we have here is the bound volume of the Awake magazine. This particular Awake magazine is October 8th, 1966. And with that, I'm going to jump to page 19 in that October 8th, 1966 magazine. So keep in mind, the argument that is often made by Jehovah's Witnesses is that the society has never really stated in 1975 was going to be the end of the world. Keep that in mind as we go through all this literature. So I'll just start reading here on page 19. I'm going to start reading in this second column over here, which you're going to see here on the screen in just a second. And it says this. It says, does God's rest day parallel the time man has been on earth since his creation? Apparently so. From the most reliable investigations of Bible chronology, harmonizing with many accepted dates of secular history, we find that Adam was created in the autumn of the year 4026 BCE. Sometime in that same year, Eve could well have been created, directly after which God's rest day commenced. In what year then would the first 6,000 years of man's existence and also the first 6,000 years of God's rest day come to an end? The year 1975. Here's the first occurrence of many where society is put into the thoughts of the Jehovah's Witnesses' minds that 1975 is of some significance. By the way, I'm going to show you a number of books and pamphlets and internal documents from the Watchtower Society. I by no means can show you all of them. If I did, this video would be 90 minutes. So there's a whole body of literature out there. I have just selectively chosen the ones that I think that make this point rather well from the Watchtower. So with that, remember that was 1966. So let's just shoot up now to 1969. In the year 1969, we have this book here, Life Everlasting in Freedom of the Sons of God. This is a 1969 copy of that book. And here's what this book says, beginning with the first two words on page 28, and then we're going to jump right to the top of page 29. And it says this. In this 20th century, an independent study has been carried on that does not blindly follow some traditional chronological calculations of Christendom. And the published timetable resulting from this independent study gives the dates of man's creation as 4026 BCE. According to this trustworthy Bible chronology, 6,000 years from man's creation will end in 1975, and the seventh period of 1,000 years of human history will begin in the fall of 1975. You see, the society is already putting in the minds of the Jehovah's Witnesses at that time that when the end, Christ is coming back at the end of 6,000 years. And then we're going to have the 1,000-year reign, the life everlasting, where Jehovah's Witnesses, you see their pictures where the little kids are sitting there petting lions and sheep laying around them. This time of unparalleled peace. Of course, that's the peace they're talking about when Christ comes back. So that's, in their mind, that's what they're thinking. 6,000 years is up. We have the 1,000. Christ comes back. We have the 1,000-year reign. They're looking for the return of Christ. So here we are in society literature, already two occasions of them telling them that 6,000-year period is going to be up in 1975. So that book was 1969. So let's look at something else from the year 1969. Here's a very small pamphlet. Society published many of these kinds of pamphlets. This one here, even though it has no title on the page, I'll just read to you the title page here. It says, "The Approaching Peace of 1,000 Years." And again, copyrighted 1969. Just to emphasize this point again, look on page 27. It says this: "Soon now, millenniums of his wicked exploiting of mankind as his slave will end." Right? Soon now, 6 millenniums of his wicked exploiting of mankind as his slaves will end. Here we are again, re-emphasizing the point. 6,000 years of man history is going to be over. 1975 marks that time which Christ returns, and Jehovah's going to rule in that 1,000-year reign. Well, actually, Christ is going to rule. So let's also shoot to this one. Very, very interesting one here. This is the Kingdom Ministry. As you can see here, this is the Kingdom Ministry from March of 1968. So with that, let me pause here and make this statement. I am not now a Jehovah's Witness. I have never been a Jehovah's Witness. I never studied to be a Jehovah's Witness. I realize that Kingdom Ministries are given personally, at least they used to be. The elders will give these personally to faithful, baptized Jehovah's Witnesses in the Kingdom Hall. So some will ask, how did you get a hold of this? Well, there happens to be more ex-Jehovah's Witnesses than there are Jehovah's Witnesses. Some of those Jehovah's Witnesses throw their literature away. Some donate it to thrift stores. Some sell it at used bookstores. I happen to be one of these people who buy and find these kinds of documents. So no, I am not an apostate, and I've never been a Jehovah's Witness. So with that, internal document here, Kingdom Ministry, personally handed to baptized Jehovah's Witnesses, that you and I that are not members of this group will not be given this document, and you will not see one of these on the street. So listen to this paragraph here on page 4. It says this: "Since we have dedicated ourselves to Jehovah, we want to do his will to the fullest extent possible. Making some special effort to do more than the usual helps us live up to our dedication. In view of the short period of time left, we want to do this as often as circumstances permit." Listen to this line. "Just think, brothers, there are only about 90 months left before 6,000 years of man existence on earth is completed. Do you remember what we learned at the assemblies last summer? The majority of people living today will probably be alive when Armageddon breaks out, and there are no resurrection hopes for those who are destroyed then. So now, more than ever, it's vital not to ignore the spirit of wanting to do more." Did you catch that? In the 6,000 years, Armageddon breaks out. 1975. Remember what I said in the beginning? Society, often Jehovah's Witnesses say, society said, we never put that in writing. Well, they did. Let's just look at this small book. Very, very popular book amongst Jehovah's Witnesses back in the day. This particular volume here is dated 1968. The Truth That Leads to Eternal Life. To keep this whole theme going, look, we've looked at Awake magazine from 1966. We looked at a book from 1969. We looked at a small pamphlet from 1969. We just read a Kingdom Ministry from 1968. Now I've got a book here from 1968. They're getting a steady diet of this message. Here's this. And they're quoting somebody in this book here too. It says, "Also, as reported back in 1960, a former United States Secretary of State, Dean Acheson, declared that our time is a," in quotation marks, "a period of unequaled instability, unequaled violence." And he warned, now in question marks again, "I know enough of what is going on to assure you that in 15 years from today, this world is going to be too dangerous to live in." Here we are again, 1968, telling the Jehovah's Witnesses, the world is just going to be absolutely too dangerous to live in. So let's bring this up here now to 1974 Kingdom Ministry. This is the Kingdom Ministry from May of 1974. And this is one that I particularly like. I take this with me on the street when I talk to Jehovah's Witnesses, and 1975 comes up. This is one of my favorite ones. On page 3 it says this: "Yes, since the summer of 1973 there have been peaks in pioneers every month. Now, There are 20,394 regular and special pioneers in the United States, an all-time peak. That is 5,190 more than there were in February 1973, a 34% increase. Does this not warm our hearts? Question mark. Reports are heard of brothers selling their homes and property and planning to finish out the rest of their days in this old system in pioneer service. Certainly this is a fine way to spend the short time remaining before the world's wicked end. Hear that, what Jehovah's Witnesses just said? Reports of brothers selling their houses and their property. That's what Jehovah's Witnesses did. Why did they do it? Because the society kept preaching to them the end of 6,000 years of man existence was going to be up in 1975. Christ is going to return. Armageddon is going to break out. Well, I look around, Armageddon didn't break out, did it? So what does society do? True to form. They drop the 1975 claim, blame it on their followers, their adherents, but they also change their books. I showed you this book. It may look like the same book to you, but these are two completely different books. This one was printed in 1968. This one was revised in 1981. I'm going to show these side-by-side comparisons here, and you'll see where they changed the book when 1975 failed. I'm just going to key in on this last part down here, this quote, right? This United States Secretary of State Dean Acheson declared that our time is a period of unequaled instability, unequaled violence. Great. Sounds just like the last one we read, but there's where it changed. Based on what he knew was then going on in the world, it was his conclusion that soon this world is going to be too dangerous to live in. That's not what they quoted last time. Here's the problem. Either the quote in the first book is purposely misquoting the Secretary of State to suit their own needs for the 1975 prophecy, or this quote that they used here in this 1981 book is inaccurate, and they changed the original quote because their prophecy failed. So in summary, Jehovah's Witnesses, or let me say the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, did make many statements about the end of 6,000 years of existence, meaning Armageddon was going to break out in 1975. You just saw it and you just read it on screen out of their own literature. That's one reason why I like false prophets. False prophets write books. They put dates in books. I get to collect those books and read them and sit here and watch as those dates pass, and they are proven